What role has faith played in your investments and what you've done to be able to grow your businesses?
It would not be possible without God at the center of everything.
So you were able to sell that property, cash out, and invest in something that you felt like was newer, going to bring a better return and not require as much maintenance, right?
Correct. It was my first property. Almost got a little sentimental and did not want to sell it because it was the first property.
Your favorite real estate deal that you've done?
I just said, hey, well, what would you have to have for it? And she just looked me right in the eye and she said, $2 million. My friend kind of looked at her and she said, I think I meant way less than that. She shot a way lower number out and I said, okay, well, maybe we can work with that.
So what advice would you give to someone that maybe feels like they're behind?
Do the first deal. You're not going to lose money on it. You can always sell it, but just do the first deal.
You're listening to the Heritage Group podcast series, and today we've got someone special, my cousin Kelton Inge. You've probably met us before. You've probably mixed us up before. Don't worry. Everyone's done that before a time or two. So, and especially his brother Bronson, right?
Yes.
You got a twin brother, so a lot of people get the three of us confused.
Yes.
But
it's more on voice, I think, with me and you.
Yeah, I think so too. And
but looks, I think Bronson's probably more of your twin, and I've heard that a lot before too. So.
Right. Yeah. And we can use that to our advantage sometimes. I feel like you've done well in business. You've established a good name for yourself. And obviously, it's a unique last name. So that's something that we kind of want to carry that and, like a brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's important, especially in a small community where I feel like everybody knows each other. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the main things when I split off from State Farm back in 2012. I thought, hey, what's the natural name or an easy name for an independent insurance agent? And it was last name, right? So Inge.
Exactly.
Independent insurance. And so that worked well. And yeah, they have confused us quite a bit, I think. But it has worked to our advantage because it's a unique deal. So
yeah, exactly. And so so give us a little bit of backstory there. How did you go from basically just deciding you don't want to work by the hour anymore, or you want to open your business? How did that take off and get started?
So start from the beginning. 2010, still in college, went to a job fair. Recognized one of the guys there. He recognized me from school, high school sports, and he was a State Farm agent. So interviewed, got the job there, worked for State Farm for a couple of years, great company. We decided to go independent. 6 months later, got offered to buy him out. So we did a buy sell. I moved offices in 2013. Very fortunate, very blessed on the timing of everything.
Right.
No way could that happen or work out now.
Yeah.
Because of, life situations, kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it was just.
Sometimes you just know it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And so that gives you a little confidence to take that step and pursue that, right?
Yeah.
I get it.
It was God's timing, and that was 2013. And then moved offices, continued on with the insurance business and kind of setting up your own hours and long hours, hard hours, but out, it was good.
But you expect that being a business owner and starting from scratch and it's a lot of work, but it pays off in the end. So and you've taken that, of course, you've grown your insurance company as well, but you've taken some of the money and you've been able to invest in some things on the side with real estate and some rental properties and different things like that too.
Yeah. As a business owner or an entrepreneur, you try to find and learn different avenues to diversify your portfolio. And that is one of the major things is investing in real estate, which you guys do. And that's our business. You talk to insurance agents, you talk to appraisers, you talk to title companies every day. I'm sure something you have open every day is Zillow, Realtor, MLS, Act Data Scout, all that stuff. So you can find out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The technology we have these days. So
absolutely.
That's something that we have open all the time and something we talk about. But I think it was 2018 before COVID hit. I had a few guys around me really push me into doing some construction loan type stuff and some investment properties. And it's tough. It's scary.
Right.
But you just got to take that first step and do it. And I'm glad I did. So
Yeah, there's a lot to learn, but some of that stuff you're not going to learn until you get in the middle of it. And it's like, you can kind of find your way through it, but you can't plan for everything in the beginning. So sometimes, you just have to jump in head first and see what happens with it.
Yeah, and you learn some hard lessons and
right.
But in everything. So
sure. Yeah.
Risk aversion, tax benefits, tax loopholes. I mean, they're there for that. So as an entrepreneur, business owner, you learn how to take advantage of those, and got a few fixer-uppers under the belt, rented them out, and then turned a few doors into a few more doors. And it worked well being on the insurance side and also having relationships with you and other realtors and insurance agents. So
yeah.
You talk
and timing, and timing. I think when you started in that, in the investment business, the market was right for it.
Yeah,
it was good at that time, and not that it's bad now, but there are ups and downs, just like any other business, right?
Oh yeah.
And so sometimes values are up, rent's up too, but it's got a cash flow. So I think you started at a very good time in the market for that.
Well, hindsight, everybody would have bought everything they could.
That's right.
Pre-COVID, right? And they'd have been sitting pretty. So, but we learned from it. And like you said, I think this area is starting to catch up. It's not like a Northwest Arkansas or a Tulsa area type of deal, but I think people are figuring out that, it's a lot easier sometimes to rent, especially multifamily, and not have your lawn maintenance or any upkeep for the property, and just be able to keep it clean, do what you need to do, but go enjoy other activities that you like to enjoy. So.
And especially, certain age groups, younger kids that are going back to school, it makes sense for them with their studies and different things. They don't have time for it. Or you've got some older people that, of course, it's better for them to not have the responsibility of taking care of. So that makes a big difference. Yeah. They're not all wins though, right? Sometimes you're going to have some failures and some losses and things that don't pan out the way you thought they would.
Right.
If you don't care, give me an example. Tell me something that maybe didn't work out for you the way you thought.
Well, I've got one fresh on my mind since it's tax season.
Of course.
So, and it's just the little things, but you think you know everything. So you go into a project and say, hey, I'm going to sell a few older rentals, got some equity built up in them. Maybe the maintenance is a lot, always something going on. And you find an opportunity to maybe build some or buy some newer investment properties, some new doors.
Less maintenance, higher rent maybe.
Yeah. And that's a great goal. So you just have to know where you're at as an investor in your portfolio. So to know, hey, if I sell these 3 and I use that towards the new project, you're not using all of that equity or gain for a straight tax benefit type of deal. It's going towards that new property. And you're getting the benefit on that new property as far as depreciation setup and all that startup. But that cash you made from those other properties, just because you turn around and put it in that new property, is not a straight write-off. So you've got to know that. You've got to learn that. And sometimes you got to have enough losses on the other side to set that off. If you do make money on a few. But
that makes sense.
That was something that I learned.
You learned along the
hard
way.
But something that I won't forget because of that. So always something.
No, that's good. That is good. Yeah. So what do you think are some common misconceptions that people have about getting started and investing, specifically with rental properties?
Number one, probably having a ton of money down. Now, right now, if you want to make something work, like you said, and make it cash flow,
right,
you probably need to have some money down to make that happen,
Right.
or another something that you can sell to get
And that
to
all
that.
is going to depend on interest rates and some different variables.
Oh, yeah.
Homeowners insurance,
Yeah.
things like that. So,
Right.
yeah.
All that stuff comes into play, but I just think it's a scary first step for
Right.
somebody that's comfortable with a Roth IRA that they've been dumping money into, or an employer plan that they're comfortable with, which is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I just think, like we talked about earlier, you diversify and put risk different places.
Greater risk, greater reward.
Right.
Yeah.
For tax advantages and for not dumping all your money into one place. But it's the first step that's the scariest, because you think, well, man, I'm going to put 10, 20 grand into this project, and then I'm not going to make anything every month. What do I get from that?
Right.
And you have to have the right people around you, or be talking to the right people.
Someone that's done it before, maybe a mentor, or
yeah.
And sometimes it's long game. It's not always
Right.
immediate that you're going to see a return monthly. Sometimes it's long game, and maybe the investment just pays for itself and you're breaking even for a while.
Right.
But we all know, if you look at history over a period of time, real estate always goes up in value.
Yep.
So even if it was raw land, not necessarily a monthly return, even if it was raw land, you've still made an investment. And over a period of time, it's going to be worth more money than what you paid for it eventually.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're in a really good spot for all that to not depreciate. I think everything will appreciate. And if you can build, your net worth and your assets are real estate, or something that somebody else is paying for,
right,
then you have to have a little bit set aside or set back in case something goes wrong.
Sure.
Or an HVAC unit goes out, because all that's going to happen.
Emergency fund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, too, that's tax benefit right off too. So you have to look at it that way. If you don't have the right perspective going in,
that's right,
you'll get real frustrated and throw your hands up and not ever want to deal with it.
So what is your what is your favorite type? What are you looking for when you think of an investment property and maybe reaching out to make a new investment?
I think more and more we're in it. The area that we're in, if you can get a good multifamily, it doesn't have to be an apartment setup. Because that's a lot, depending on if you have what you need to do that. But if you can get a duplex, or find a lot that you can build a duplex on, or get a couple of duplexes, I just think that's
works out
the
best
setup. There's a little bit more write-off tax advantage on the multifamily side of things, and then you run into it all comes back to the middle game too. So if you got a duplex, one side's rented out, one side moves out, it's still not completely vacant.
That's right. You're still getting some return.
Yeah. So in your mind, you're thinking, well, I've got somebody still helping to pay for half or more than half of that loan payment, insurance, taxes.
Yes.
Well, I get the other one back rent ready. So it's never a completely vacant.
I never thought of that. I never thought about that, but it makes sense.
Yeah. So, and just learning from older single family, or any newer single family, remodeled or whatever, it's just, when that's vacant, you've got nothing there.
Right.
You've got to scramble and get it ready to rent, or
you've got to get it back ready and get it on the market immediately, and trying to get
So even if it's newer, more expensive multifamily stuff, or a lot zoned multifamily, I think that is more attractive nowadays.
Right.
And it's even going more that way, I think.
So is it getting harder? Is it getting harder to be able to build a new construction multifamily and get a cash flow on it, or long-term return? Because I know building materials have gone up. We saw that with COVID. Some of them have kind of settled back down a little bit, it seems like, but they never went back to where they were pre-COVID. So obviously that expense is higher now.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think they have to go back, even if
everything around is kind of caught up.
Yeah, which is fine. That's just the way it is. But I think depending on what you build, you have to build the right thing. So if you're starting from, hey, I want to get my lot bought, and then have that as equity for the build type of deal, you need to build the right structure, whether that be a smaller duplex or even a smaller single family.
Right.
But if you want to go try to build a bigger townhome, triplex, apartment type of deal, you've got to almost have either the cash or have sold something else to tax exchange over to that new property to make it work.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a loan on it, because the banks aren't going to work with you.
And I'm sure it makes a difference what community you're building in. You need to know what's going to work for that community.
Yes.
And I'm sure that factors in too. So yeah.
I think you told me, somebody told me it was 40%, maybe give or take, Fort Smith's going rental, and then like closer to 60% NWA going rental.
Right.
And then that's all, you've got some customs going up here and there, but
it's taken off. It is getting a lot more popular than it used to be.
Yeah.
And I think it does, going back to what you said earlier, I think it does kind of go back to they're more carefree.
Right.
And I think the other side of it is it's probably harder now to get approved for a mortgage loan than it ever has been.
Right.
And again, like I said, with younger people, we've got a lot of young people that they make good money. They pay their bills on time, but they change jobs frequently enough that it's hard for them to get approved for a mortgage. Right. So the money's there, but in that situation, they don't mind. They'll go ahead and pay, a pretty good price for rent.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's carefree, so they don't have to worry about anything maintenance-wise. They don't have to mow their yard. They don't have to worry about running their credit. They don't have to worry about messing with taxes.
Right.
At worst, they're getting a renter's insurance policy for $10, $15 a month. So what are they paying for? Rent, internet, and utilities.
Right.
So we've had a lot of people that have, got even older, that the kids have moved out, that have sold their house. You probably dealt with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we're going to move into a nice new duplex.
Right.
And go watch our grandkids play ball, or
much less
ride
responsibility
bikes on the weekend, or not have to worry about mowing the yard. And
that's right. They can take vacations and anything they want to do. If they're gone for a couple of weeks, when they get back, everything's the same.
You can budget everything. Like, you're going to pay X amount of dollars for rent every month. And it's just,
if the heat and air unit goes out, guess what? You can call the landlord. They'll take care of it for you.
That's it.
Right. That's good. So how do you handle fear or doubt when the numbers aren't looking good? How do you deal with that? How do you handle that?
As far as a new investment or current investment or anything?
Either. Either.
Depending on, so I guess I like certain areas. Depending on where that's at or what it is, I'll want it naturally.
Right.
That's men or women, but I think a man's natural instinct is to always be looking for the next deal.
Right.
Right. So
absolutely.
As insurance agents and realtors, we're always, hey, I wonder if they would sell that, or hey, that's not listed, and hey, that's in a trust, or there's always an opportunity.
And we just naturally know the market. We keep up with it all the time because you're just made that way.
Right. Yeah. So you do all you can to make it work, cash flow, but if it's land or something else and you think it might be a good chance to take, then sometimes you can take it. But we do a little research too. I don't like making. I've had a few of those, as you have.
You still stay educated.
Yeah, but I've had a few of those, like, if they'll sell this for this price, or then I'm not going to ask any questions.
Right.
I'm not going to get an inspection.
Strike while the iron's hot.
Right.
Yeah.
So some of those, few and far between, but they're still out there.
It is. Yeah.
But it's kind of a cool win.
It happens every now and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, for current stuff, if you just have to keep an eye on interest rates and taxes, insurance, all that stuff, and make sure that if you're making a little or breaking even, like I said, it's perspective.
And they're still long term.
They're still long term. Like I said,
right.
If it's in your brain that this is long term, and your perspective is, if somebody else is close to or paying for an asset, and I get a benefit from it each year, tax wise, whatever else, then it's still not a bad deal.
It's a win-win. It really is.
Yeah.
And talking about long term, you've got kids, I've got kids. When we think about investing, what do you think about, how do you feel about the legacy that you're set up to leave your kids and teaching them some knowledge about investing themselves?
Yeah, we've started talking a little bit about it. So if we drive by a property, they'll ask, hey, is that ours? And then, we'll talk to them about how that came to be and how it's set up
Yeah.
and what the opportunity is there for that. And
Right.
blink of an eye, one goes from a newborn to 9 years old, or a newborn to
Right.
20 years old.
Right.
So there's opportunity to, hey, if this tenant moves out, maybe you can come up here and we'll clean it out instead of
It's
calling
never too
somebody.
early to start teaching.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, there's an opportunity for that. And then there's just different things we have to learn as far as passing it down or getting it ready for them. But
And make sure they carry it on or help it to grow, maybe even build it bigger,
Right.
And, talking about family and you hope that the kids will take it together and continue to grow it and make more. And then they're going to have kids and it's just going to keep going and be something that you can leave behind that lasts for generations.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a cool opportunity to do, especially with us being local and trying to have property local. But sometimes we limit ourselves and we don't need to. And sometimes there's other opportunities further away.
Mm-hmm.
So it just takes talking to the right people. And everybody's heard it a million times. If you can be the dumbest person in the conversation, then you're probably going to learn something.
That's right.
So
that's right.
You can
surround yourself with good people that have been there and done it. You can learn a lot like that.
Yeah.
And with your family, what role has faith played in your investments and what you've done to be able to grow your businesses and, like we said, hopefully leave a legacy for your family?
Like we started out saying, it would not be possible, without God at the center of everything. So that He is the center of our family.
Mm-hmm.
He's the center of why we pray every night together as a family. He's the center of why we go to church. He's the center of why we try to have something to talk about what He's done for us or how we can help other people every day.
Yeah.
But I think more than anything in business, it's the opportunities and the timing, like we talked about, that we don't like or see sometimes, but we get too anxious, I guess. But it's one of those things like, man, I've made it, or I've done this. Look what I did. Look what I made. Look what I sold. And then real quick, you'll get something that comes and knocks the legs out from
your
under
perspective.
You.
Right.
And I've always taken that as, you know what? That's Him waking me up.
Right.
And saying, it's not you.
That's right.
It's me. And
I believe that. Absolutely.
So that and the timing that He provides, you just have to realize that it's not on your time, it's on His time. So I've always said that I would not be where I am if it wasn't for His timing, not mine. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that we have to calm down and realize that He's in control and we're not. And
we get anxious and we want things to happen the way we want them to.
Yeah.
But you're right. We've got to be patient. And as long as we're doing the right thing, opportunities are going to come to us when the time's right.
Right.
So I believe that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And at what point, I know everybody's got to start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you start to see, okay, this is paying off and I'm actually not making money, I'm multiplying. I'm actually, it's almost compound at that point, at some point. How far in or when did that happen for you?
Now, if everything goes smooth month to month, I feel like we are gaining a little bit, but you also have to use that gain to keep there in case something does go wrong.
Right.
So with interest rates and everything the way they are now, you've either got to have another deal going to just pay a property down or property off to cash flow a whole lot. But I think you can take that and either add more doors or just be okay with, hey, I'm just going to have 10 doors paid off.
Right.
And also do this investment and also do this investment. Or you can say, hey, I want 50 doors.
So
you're not going to get that paid off. I mean, you're probably not going to get that paid off but it's all,
you're going to acquire
different.
more debt when you do that. But at the same time, it's going to reach a point where it starts to pay off, and it's going to pay off more because you've made more of an investment.
Right.
And that's where you kind of have to find your fine line as to, I want to stop investing and get everything I have paid for.
Yeah.
Or I want to keep using what I'm generating from it to invest more.
Right.
And I guess that's up to each person individually, you know.
It is, but at some point too, you think, man, I'm just going to pay these off, and I'm going to start. But then you think, or learn something from tax season or some other business dealing. Like,
right.
Well, dang, I just need to take the equity out of these three and refi them and put it over here and have more assets.
Right.
And learn from that, go on, keep building. So I think it's all situational.
Yeah.
Right. But I think everybody's different. If you want to have a goal. So I think my goal, I've always said, is I would like to have 25 doors and have a reasonable timeline to try to get those paid off, and also have some other IRAs or
diversify just a little bit.
Universal life policies, which Dave Ramsey will probably strike me down for saying that life insurance is an investment, but there are some avenues that you can take advantage of.
But it is smart. It is smart. I understand. Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, when you talk about where you want to stop or what your goal is or whatever, you also have to take into consideration what happens if that opportunity, like we talked about earlier, if they'll take X amount of dollars for it. You know, I've met my goal. I've got as many doors as I want. Everything's generating the way it should. And then what happens when you come across something that you know is a good deal?
Right.
Do you pass that on to a friend, to a relative, or do you say, you know what, this is an opportunity and I feel like God's given it to me because I should take advantage of it?
That's a good question. So all are situational, but I think that at some point it can be a very competitive industry. Insurance, maybe even not so much sometimes, because, hey, if I can't do this policy and so can, he's a great agent. Like, that's just his niche.
Right.
You know, he's really good at doing multifamily, newer duplex insurance. Call him. He's a buddy, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
On the real estate side, if it's not on Zillow and MLS, and oh my gosh, if it ever does hit, then everybody will buy it before. I got a really good opportunity here, right?
Right.
I think that's where you have to have yourself leveraged and ready, maybe with a HELOC or just cash set back.
That's good advice. I think so too.
You know, because if you can use that, that's your equity that you've built up. And if it's the deal of a lifetime or something that you can't pass up, you've got to be ready for it.
You've got to be. And I think if you're truly waiting on opportunities to present themselves, you've got to get yourself in a position where you can take care of or take advantage of the opportunity when it presents itself.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like you said, that just looks like a HELOC. Sometimes that's not necessarily cash money, but it's buying power.
Right.
And so you don't always have to have cold cash on hand.
Right.
But you've got to have something that you can use to make an offer quick. And I know in real estate, cash speaks. So if you can make a cash offer that's not contingent on financing, get that opportunity secured. Now it's yours. You close the deal. You can always go back and roll it into a mortgage when the interest rates are right. And you feel like now you can cash flow with it. Yep. Or maybe you save up a down payment to go with it before rolling over to a final mortgage.
Right. Yeah. I think you use your equity, and I think a lot of the home equity lines of credit or whatever else, even if it's on your rental properties and you take out a line of credit on that equity, maybe you've had a few for a few years or pre-COVID type of deal. I mean, why would you not take that equity and put it into a deal of a lifetime, and then refi it, or, you know, use the bank's money to make money.
Right.
So, yeah, that's
as long as interest rates cooperate with you.
Yeah. Most of the HELOCs that, you know, I've talked to, the local banks have really good setups for that. And
they do. Yeah.
You've got a while to pay it back, and you can kind of set on it until you either refinance it or sell it.
Yeah. So. And like I said, sometimes you buy through the HELOC and then you save up a down payment refinance, get it to a permanent mortgage. And so that does make sense.
Yep.
Yeah. We bounce stuff off of each other all the time, right? I'm always calling, you're calling, whatever. Who do you think is more likely to take advice from the other person in business?
For me or you?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, insurance, I feel like I could nerd out and say a bunch of stuff always, but I always like to hear, the market analysis on the real estate side from you.
Right.
So
no, I feel the same way. It's kind of like, I'm going to trust you in that branch. I feel like you probably trust me. So
yeah. Just because, I don't see listings before they hit, or I don't see what you guys see. So, and I don't deal with title companies near as much.
Right.
If I do, it's sending over a binder for, home insurance type of deal. But you know all the stuff before I know it. So on the real estate side, I always feel like I'm asking you about it.
I understand.
So
and I'm the same way.
I can do my own stuff online and find out a lot, but until I hear it from you.
But you've taken more risk with the investments. You've taken more risk, and it's paid off for you. I'm glad you've had those opportunities and stuff. You didn't just put all of your eggs in one basket, as they say, with the insurance company. And of course, that's doing well, and we know it's going to continue to. But you've got other things. You've diversified, and I think that's important. I think, you start that early, and like we talked about, you're going to end up with something to leave, a legacy to leave your kids, and it could be in several different places, not just in rentals and real estate investment.
I did a little research on that too, as far as being on the insurance side, but I had a buddy that, kind of pushed me into doing the real estate investment. And it's one of those things like, help me find a deal. You kind of found this deal. I've got a few deals under the belt. This is a good opportunity.
Right.
Even before COVID, you're not going to lose your tail end on this one. Just do it.
Yeah.
And then learn from it.
Right.
And was scared and then did it, and
there's no other
learned
way to
from
learn.
it.
Right.
And don't have that property anymore, but because we did what we did and I was pushed into it.
So you were able
everything after that was a lot easier.
So you were able to sell that property, cash out, and invest in something that you felt like was newer, going to bring a better return and not require as much maintenance, right?
Correct.
Yeah. That's always a good move.
Yeah. So that was what we were talking about earlier, and that's what I did. And that was one of the properties we did it on. Was my first property. Almost got a little sentimental and did not want to sell it because it was the first property.
Right.
But it had the most equity. So it was a natural move. And so not only did we learn from it from the beginning, but we also learned from it just recently from selling it on should we have sold it when we sold it to move over money to a new project type of deal. So it's kind of cool how each property can teach you a lot of different lessons from the beginning.
Is that your favorite real estate deal that you've done? That first one?
No.
Which one's your favorite?
My favorite, like purchase?
Yeah. Most fun, or maybe the most
highest
reward
one. The most interesting one, reward yet to be seen, was an older house on a good location lot in Van Buren. So did some research on it. We had some stuff going on as far as might get some offers on my office type of deal.
Right.
So started looking in the area, sent a Facebook message. No, I'm not interested in selling. Forgot about it. Almost a year later, hey, are you still interested in buying? Sure.
Wow.
I had no idea on price. Went over and actually met with her. It was her old homestead, or her parents' old homestead, in a great location.
Right.
And she may or may not be listening to this, but she threw it. I just said, hey, well, what would you have to have for it? And she had a friend there with her, and sweet old ladies, and she just looked me right in the eye and she said, $2 million.
Wow.
I said, man, this has been a great meeting.
Right.
It was nice to talk to you in person.
Yeah.
But I would really like for you to call me and message me when you get that price.
Right.
Not being mean or anything. And she just kind of looked at me and she looked at her friend and she said,
but you encourage her at that point. Go ask
I'm like,
around.
Hey, it may be, you know, I mean, I've done a little research. Maybe I'm way off. And at that point I was wanting the deal as an investor, but I was genuinely trying to help her at that point because that deal was off the table, right? When she said that number.
Sure.
And I said, hey, just if I can do anything to help, let me know. You know, the other deal fell through anyway. I don't have to do anything, but just let me know if I can help you. And she looked at her friend, and her friend kind of looked at her, and she said, I think I meant way less than that. I don't think I meant that. And I said, well, what do you mean?
How much less?
Yeah, how much less? So she shot a way lower number out, and I said, okay, well, maybe we can work with that. And end up, she needed help finding a house and wanted to transition out of that one. Yeah. And I helped her in the process of that, and we came to an agreement on the deal. And
that's awesome.
It was a pretty cool story.
Worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, and she got what she needed from that deal and was able to get go debt free into another house. And she was just super thankful, and it was pretty neat.
But honestly, you can't blame her for her first comment or her first offer to you because she didn't know who you were with. And sometimes you get big corporations that come in and they will actually pay more than what something is worth if you want to look up, comps or market value, appraised value, whatever, because I mean, you've heard it a million times in real estate, but it's true. Location's everything.
Well, and you've heard it a million times too. And one of the first things my dad told me, and I'm sure your dad did too, but something's only worth what somebody will pay for it.
That's right.
And that could be $1 or that could be $1 million. And if somebody wants to pay $1 million for 10 square feet of land somewhere, then that's what it's worth.
Depending on what their ideal use for it is.
Right. That's what it's worth. That's what it's worth to them. Right. So,
yeah. So what's one thing that you would never invest in? What's something that you feel like is always going to be off the radar for you? It doesn't necessarily have to be real estate related, but
that's a good question. I've never really thought about that. I think there is some commercial real estate opportunities that are attractive. But I think there's also some that, unless you're going to move into a space or do something specific with that space or land, that they're not attractive. So the rate of return on some of those are really nice, I think, if you know the right people. But I would say that may be one thing that it's a certain commercial setup that I would not look at right now.
So as far as on the residential side, you feel like a single unit, anything up to maybe an apartment complex, you think any of that can be a good investment if the money's there, right?
Right.
As long as the income's there. What situation do you get into with upkeep, with maintenance on a larger complex?
We've got one that has 10 doors, and I think you get into a he said, she said type of deal unless you've got somebody there that you can trust and talk to about what else may be going on.
Causing issues
in that unit. We deal with a few on the insurance side of 60 plus door apartment type deals, and they're there every day, or they have a live-in tenant, a manager, I guess.
It keeps up with maintenance and all that.
Yeah, keeps up with that and takes payments and reports back to the owner. But that'd be the main thing is...
I mean, at some point, it only makes sense to have someone that's basically there 24/7, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So most people don't know it, but once you go over 4 doors in one building, so above a fourplex, it's treated as a commercial property on the insurance side. So if you've got a 5plex or more, it goes to a true commercial policy. So 4 or less is still able to ride on a smaller,
cheaper
landlord insurance policy that could possibly be cheaper. But then you've only got 2 to 4 tenants to keep up with. Not as much headache. But I see a lot of people maybe selling a single family or 2 or 5 and then rolling it into a bigger apartment, complex because you've got more doors in one spot it's easier.
Right.
Logistics.
Right. Makes sense.
But it has to be the right deal.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. So what advice would you give to someone that maybe feels like they're behind and they should have started investing, a few years ago and they didn't, and they say, okay, now's the time, and maybe they feel like they're behind, but they want to get started?
If you decide to do it, find a deal, talk to whoever that knows a little bit about it. Do the first deal. If you've
the first
got the
one's
money,
the big one, right?
Yes. If you've got the money to put down or can work with a bank on equity you've got in your home or a vehicle or anything, do the first deal, and then you will know. You're not going to lose money on it. You can always sell it.
Right.
But just do the first deal.
If you buy it right, that gets you started. It builds confidence, and then you're going to feel a little bit more relaxed and knowledgeable to make future investments.
Yes.
But you got to get started somewhere, right?
Yes.
And better late than never.
Yeah, you got to get started somewhere. You got to know the maintenance. You got to know the tax implications. You got to know the property management side. You got to know all that. But it just takes one to learn all of that.
Yeah.
And if you want to continue to do it, great.
Yeah.
If not, great. It's not for everybody.
And through experience, you end up learning what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what's going to require more maintenance as far as, the age of the homes or the way they were constructed or whatever it is. So that eventually defines what you do or do not want to invest in, right?
Correct. Yeah, each property investor has their own, cup of tea that they like to invest in, and maybe one person likes slabs and one person likes crawl spaces because if a pipe busts, then it's not going to necessarily damage a floor.
Right.
If it's in a crawl under the house.
Yeah.
Everything's a little bit different, but yeah, I think you can set a goal, and then if you like to do it, you keep going.
And even if the brick on slab is your favorite, which makes sense, it is going to be less maintenance most of the time. But if you can buy it right, the crawl space can still make you money, right?
Right. And then even like the barracks or a downtown property,
right? If
you can get it at the right price, throw some new siding and a new roof or whatever on it, then Park. What is it? Park Hill.
Park Hill. Right.
Yeah. So depending on the area, I mean,
that's a very desirable area.
Yeah. Depending on the area, if you can dress it up and get it back to a little modern,
right?
Especially on the inside, then yeah.
And those are usually not huge houses, so to come in and do a little bit of work and kind of freshen it up a little bit is usually pretty affordable.
Yeah.
It's not bad as long as there's no major, concerns when you buy it in the first place.
Right, right. And the people can look at that as, I don't have to heat and cool.
Right.
As big of a space. So if they're trying to budget, then maybe they don't want a 2,000 square foot house to pay for utilities if they're on the hook for utilities type of deal. So you have to think about all that too on the investment side. Like, hey, if I'm going to ask somebody to pay $1,500 rent a month, are their utilities going to be another $800 a month? Then maybe they don't want to do that.
And they're not going to be able to stay there. They're not going to be able to pay outrageous utilities and still pay you a reasonable fee for rent. So that makes sense.
It all goes into play. So you've got to think on the renter's side as well as the investor's side.
A lot of things to consider.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you sitting down with me and talking through some investments. And as always, it's a good time. We do this on the phone like once a week anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is a pretty natural process. So we were just talking about interest rates before we started rolling here. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing to always talk about and always keep up with, because you talk to people every day about it. I talk to people every day about it.
Right.
Hey, what's interest rates going to go to? How's that going to affect everything else? It's just neat to see how it plays out.
We always say we just nerd out. We get on the phone and we just take off talking about this stuff, and it's interesting. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Appreciate you having conversation with me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.